Welcome to the Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast, the podcast that travels back into time to review classic episodes of Jim Crockett Promotions' Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling program as they appear on the WWE Network and the NBC streaming service Peacock. I am Mike Sempervive, joined by my co-host Roman Gomez, and we welcome you to our voyage in reviewing these classic episodes. And in this edition, we'll be taking a look at the Mid-Atlantic television program that was taped on Wednesday, September 15th, 1982, at the WPCQ Studios, Channel 36 in Charlotte, North Carolina, and aired in local markets beginning the weekend of Saturday, September 18th, 1982. If you want to follow along with us as we review these shows, you can do so by signing up for the WWE Network at WWENetwork.com. You can also follow along by the way of David Tobbs' write-ups of the network shows, which are available over at MidAtlanticGateway.com. We also have social media on several platforms. Search at Mid-Atlantic Pod and look for the logo. And without any other further ado, bring in my co-host Roman Gomez here. Roman, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing all right, Mike. How's everything going in your world?
I will never complain about my world when we're sitting here talking about Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling in this edition from September 18th, 1982. A little bit of a maintenance show, I would say. We've had a lot of highs over the summer, and we've got a lot of feuds that are raging right now, but this show was basically to kind of set up some things that would be coming into the area, most notably Abdullah the Butcher, who would be gunning for Wahoo McDaniel, but also, Roman, the feud between Joe Ledoux and the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, rages on, and we have a big moment in the life of the Boogie Woogie Man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to you playing that clip. Hopefully you've got that clip queued and ready because it's going to be pretty entertaining, I think.
Oh, yes, you know I do. And for those of you who may have just jumped into listening to the Mid-Atlantic Championship Podcast, well, we welcome you, but you've been missing some things. And in fact, you need to go back to the last episode we have, number 34, where we talked about the September 11th edition of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, where the music died for the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, the small red portable cassette player that he had that he would listen to his music, unfortunately bit to dust at the hands of the House of Humperdinck, both Bad Leroy Brown and, of course, the Canadian lumberjack Joe Ledoux laid hands and feet upon that sad cassette player, broke it, ended up in pieces all over the floor, sent Jimmy Valiant down on his hands and knees, and uttered the phrase that you could do anything you wanted. You could have his old ladies, but don't hurt his music. Roman, they hurt his music. And we lead off the show today with it's like Christmas in September.
Yeah, Jimmy Valiant got the gift of a lifetime.
He did indeed. And I'll go ahead and play this clip and then explain this wonderful gift that he got from all the baby faces a little bit more.
Singles match. Team together in those tag team matches, you're going to see such stars as Wahoo McDaniel, Jack Briscoe, Paul Jones, Greg Valentine, also Rick Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. But right now, here's the boogeyman himself, Jimmy Valiant. Jimmy, come on in, and it's good to see you. After what happened to you last week, all of the fans talked about it. All of your wrestling buddies, Jimmy, got together. We got a big surprise for you right here.
A little early Christmas.
Yes, sir, a little early Christmas, a present from all of your wrestling friends to Jimmy Valiant. Jimmy, right here.
Hold this right here, Bobby.
All right.
Open it up. You know, the first time in my life, I'm speechless. The boogeyman is speechless. Look at this. I can't believe it, baby. I love you, too. I love my boys right there. I love you, Daddy. Oh, man. Oh, Mo. Look at here, baby. Let me see how you work this thing, baby.
I'll go ahead and fade it out right there, because at this point, Jimmy Valiant takes this brand new boombox out of its box. It is no longer a portable cassette player. We have moved up in the world. It is a Panasonic RX5010. Yes, that is the model. Jimmy Valiant takes this thing out of the box, presses play, and immediately, I'm going to assume, Boy from New York City started playing. Doesn't matter what started playing for real, the WWE Network overdub of Jimmy Valiant's music comes out, drowns everything out, but Jimmy starts to celebrate, and he thanks everybody, and we'll go ahead and pick it up from there.
I guess he should be.
You know, things that happened last week, you know, it's a shame it's, you know, things like that happen on TV. And all the guys got together, you know, because you can't find a better man than Jimmy Valiant around anywhere. And I'm going to tell you one thing. We're all there for a reason.
They got the bounty on my head. They got the guys coming in trying to break the Briscoes' legs. They got Leroy Brown here on Steamboat. But I tell you one thing, we're a pretty tight group on our side right now.
That's right, and we're getting tighter all the time. You know, all last week, Jimmy was just down in the dumps. You know, he always had his music and everything else. And it's just that one Joe LeDuc sort of took it away from him. But like Chief had said, we all got together. A lot of people that are after us right here and now. But I had mentioned in the past several weeks of trying to get some stipulations, been going through a lot of red tape and trying to contain Humperdinck, him running around the ring. Well, we've come through with that. The NWA has come through with that. They pulled through for me, and we're containing him in ways of he's going to be strapped to individuals. He's going to be strapped to people maybe like Jay Youngblood, and he's not going to be able to stick his nose, his fingers into the match in which I'll have an equal chance with Leroy Brown.
Hey, man, that's great news. And Jack?
I'll tell you why, Valentine and Jones have been going around, they're riding high now. Jones, of course, took the Mid-Atlantic Championship away from me with a karate. Him and Valentine jumped me in the parking lot, tried to put me out of wrestling. They couldn't get it done. So believe me, my brother Jerry's on his way. We're going to get them in some matches, and we're going to find out who's the best at the figure-4 leg lock or the Indian death lock. You can bet on that.
Right. Boy, a lot of things happening, Wahoo.
That's right. They got a big man coming in against me, 450-pound Abdullah the Butcher. Well, last time I didn't know he was in town.
Nobody knew.
That's right. They ran him in behind me. This time I know he's coming. And just like I told Jack and Steamboat, and I think they know, I'm not afraid of anybody face to face. But a man can get hurt when he's got his back turned, and I don't plan on being hurt because I don't like being hurt. I don't like spending all my time healing up. I like to go play golf. I like to feel good in the daytime. Abdullah, like I said before, I hope they've got one of those great big dump trucks down there at Hertz Rent, but that's what it's going to take to haul you out of here.
All right, fans, there you have it, right here ringside.
Well, there we hear from the babyface contingent, all of which are doing battle with the House of Humperdinck. The Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, has been made whole now with his music. Ricky Steamboat, Wahoo McDaniel, and Jack Briscoe amongst Jimmy Valiant's wrestling friends that decided to get him out of the doldrums and get him this brand new Panasonic RX 5010 model boombox that he had, Roman. And before we get to Jimmy Valiant, I appreciate Wahoo McDaniel's line. I like to go play golf. I like to feel good in the daytime. Me too, Wahoo. What are your feels about hearing all that stuff that went down, Roman?
Oh, my gosh. Difference from one week to the next. Last week, Valiant was talking about how he wanted to kill somebody for destroying his little cassette player. And then we proceed to this week, where Valiant is hugging everybody and dancing around as if he was a little kid that just got rewarded with his lost puppy. He got a brand new boombox, and to me, it was just so corny and cheesy, and I just had to laugh because right when he gets the boombox, there's automatically a cassette tape in there, just queued up and ready to go. What a great job by his friends to make sure that the tape was ready to go, and it was comical. I mean, I was cracking up the whole time that it made Jimmy's day. I mean, if he won the lottery, I don't think he would have had a bigger smile.
Made my day, too, although, let me tell you something. Those 8D batteries that it would take, because I was a child of the 80s, and, those things were just hell on C and D batteries, especially when they moved to the ones that actually had, like, the 3-inch black and white TV in them. I don't know if you remember those or not, but, yeah, I mean, those were... Man, you didn't get nothing free with those, let alone loaded with batteries and music ready to go like the Boogeyman did.
And what a great form of unity by the baby faces to all get together and pitch in to buy him the boombox. What solidarity amongst the baby faces there.
Well, hey, they're like that with their money. I'm still not sure that Jack Briscoe and Ricky Steamboat got the money back from Wahoo that was taken by Roddy Piper, or Briscoe's money that Wahoo and Steamboat had put up, I should say, from a couple months earlier there. But, this Panasonic RX 5010, apparently Earth, Wind & Fire was doing a lot of the advertising for Panasonic back then. And for those that were wondering about, what Panasonic was doing and why this thing was so valuable, apparently, here's the quote from Earth, Wind & Fire, I guess as a group. In the ad, I guess they all sung this together. Quote, "After you listen to Panasonic ambient sound, you'll never go back to ordinary stereo." And the ad goes on to read that if you think Earth, Wind & Fire sounds spectacular in ordinary stereo, then just wait until you hear them in Panasonic ambient sound. Ambience is a completely different experience in sound that begins where ordinary stereo ends. Ambience surrounds you with rich, full-dimensional sound that seems to come from everywhere, not just from a left speaker and a right speaker, but from all around you, which is kind of like a Boogeyman Jimmy Valiant promo, just swirling around all around you. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the first things I thought of when I saw that box there was like, wow, Panasonic's got to be pretty happy about that, because they made a point to zoom in on Panasonic, and, you know, Panasonic was all over the place on that. So I'm sure they were pretty happy that their product was featured quite prominently during that segment.
Yeah, they weren't skimping there in the Mid-Atlantic. That's why it was the Cadillac of wrestling territories. There was no Radio Shack bootleg edition going on there. That was the real deal. We go to a commercial break after that, and then we get Wahoo and Jack Briscoe inside the ring to face off against Ken Timms and Private Don Kernoodle. Private Nelson nowhere to be found here. Private Kernoodle is in there. Wahoo teaming up with Jack Briscoe, and as Bob Caudle explains during the match, that Wahoo is essentially there to fill the void until Jerry Briscoe gets back, as Bob talks about him coming back into the area, and he pretty much recapped the promos from that began the show, as well as kind of tied everybody's feuds together during this match, and it was a solid start. Don Kernoodle, it was very predictable in that Ken Timms being the guy underneath, being the guy with the least cachet out of everybody there, he's the one that took most of the beating, while Don Kernoodle ran his mouth from ringside. And Kernoodle, when he would get in there, things were a little bit more even, but it didn't take long. In fact, it only took about 6 minutes or so before they both hit Ken Timms with a clothesline, and Jack Briscoe locked on the figure four, and that was that.
Well, last week, Ken Timms wrestled Steamboat under the mask when he was the Gladiator. And this week, he's teaming with Kernoodle. And something I liked in this contest that I thought was really neat was that at one point, Briscoe went to work on the leg of Kernoodle. And then when Kernoodle went on the offensive, he was still selling the fact that his leg had been worked on. And if you think about that in current wrestling, you really don't see that. A guy may sell for a little bit, but once he goes on the offensive, you would never guess that he was getting worked over at all during the match. But when Kernoodle goes on the offensive, he's still kind of limping. When he makes the tag and he exits the ring, you could see he's kind of limping a little bit, maybe struggling to get through the ropes. But I thought that was a good job of Kernoodle to continue selling. And it was just something real subtle. And that's one of the things I took out of this match.
You know, Don Kernoodle, he would talk about a guy that once he was given the ball towards the end of last year and joined up with Sergeant Slaughter, talk about a guy that's absolutely ran with it. You know, the confidence that he had in himself, just improving inside the ring and just improving as a character. And it's not going to be long before we start seeing Don Kernoodle in a whole new way, and that's being in the main event position. But guy that was in the main event position for a long time, going in and out of places, Abdullah the Butcher as a special attraction, got a lot of special mention during this match from Bob as well, too, because he is coming in to face off against Wahoo McDaniel, and he is, of course, being paid by Sir Oliver Humperdinck. And another guy that Sir Oliver Humperdinck has been trying to pay and has been trying to proposition has been Mike Rotundo. And we got to hear that for the first time. We've seen Sir Oliver Humperdinck kind of linger around, and Humperdinck has obviously taken a real shine to Mike Rotundo, and he tries to speak to him before his match he's got coming up here against Ben Alexander.
All right, fans, we're back at ringside. Mike Rotundo is supposed to be in the ring in a match up here with Ben Alexander, and here is Sir Oliver Humperdinck.
I'm trying to talk to the kid. I'm trying to make sense to the kid. We're going to make a lot of money.
Let's get something straight. I don't think I need your help. I just came here to wrestle my match. If I have any talent at all, I certainly wouldn't need your help, so I thank you anyway, and just let me wrestle, please.
Let me just stand here and direct you, okay? Just go ahead. Go ahead, wrestle. I'm just going to watch.
You're going to direct him. He doesn't. All right, Mike Rotundo. Outstanding athlete out of Syracuse, tremendous wrestler, and Humperdinck says he's going to direct him. I think what is happening, Humperdinck has been trying to talk Mike Rotundo into signing with him. I think Humperdinck is really impressed with this young man, impressed so much that he wants to add him to the stable of the House of Humperdinck. Rotundo with the arm now, and the pressure takes Alexander down to the mat. Head scissors now from Alexander and Rotundo.
Now, you may have been able to hear Sir Oliver Humperdinck scream, "Pull his hair." He later on would scream to pull the tights. He'd tell him to use closed fists, all that sort of stuff. And about 2 minutes into the match, Paul Jones came out in the same way that Greg Valentine had in the last couple of weeks to mention something to Sir Oliver Humperdinck. Once he does that, it's not long before Sir Oliver Humperdinck walks over to the announce desk and starts to talk to Bob Caudle and lamenting a little bit about Rotundo's attitude.
He's hollering, pull the hair, pull the tights. Everything you're hollering up there is illegal.
You know, this kid is just not listening to me. I can make this kid a star. I can make his name a household word. I can make him a star all over the world if he just listened to me, but he's not doing it right. He's not taking instruction from me. I don't know what's wrong with the kid. I've shown him the easy way to money.
I don't think he likes those instructions you're hollering up there because everything you're
look at him now.
Do,
look at him now. Now, if he'd been listening to me, he wouldn't be in this position he's in right now. Come on, Rotundo.
Forearm, and Rotundo hits the mat and hits it hard.
So there we hear Humperdinck complaining about Mike Rotundo, wanting to wrestle the match scientifically, pointing out that he's had some hazards thrown at him that, you know, if he just would have listened to Hump, you know, it wouldn't be this issue. You know, sometimes you got to gouge an eye. Sometimes you got to fish hook or like Paul Jones, use karate maybe even. But Mike Rotundo does not do that. And in fact, actually, in my opinion, he's got a lot of trouble with Ben Alexander here, who put up a lot more resistance than I would have thought. And this match went about 6 minutes and 20 seconds, which, I got to be honest, it felt about 3 minutes too long.
You know, it was interesting at the beginning when Humperdinck approached Rotundo, and Rotundo wanted nothing to do with him. And as Humperdinck's hollering commands at Rotundo, Rotundo's not listening. And a little later on in the contest, Humperdinck's still chirping, you know, do this, do that. And I thought it was kind of interesting when Bob Caudle said, well, who's he talking to? You know, like that would have been an interesting way to do it, where since Rotundo did not want to listen to Humperdinck, I thought that would have been kind of interesting if they had Humperdinck cheering on Alexander. You know, that would have been one way to go about it. But, you know, at the end, when Humperdinck gets in the ring and Rotundo showing he wanted nothing to do with him, he actually shoved Humperdinck. You know, like, get out of here. I want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, Humperdinck stormed off after that. And I should mention as well, too, our referee for the day, Stu Schwartz, is in there. And Mike Rotundo gets the victory in 6 minutes and, like I said, about 20 seconds or so. Got the airplane spin and the pin on Big Ben Alexander, and that was that. It was then time for our localized promos, which, of course, we don't get on the WWE Network. Who did we get instead? Not too bad of a team. It was Mike Davis and King Parsons, and both of them talked about the House of Humperdinck and their upcoming match that they were having in a few minutes with Joe Ledoux and Leroy Brown. And Roman, I didn't cut this interview at all, but, you know, Mike Davis and King Parsons,
Thank you. It's okay that we didn't have to hear that interview.
Well, you know, Mike Davis is a step ahead of King Parsons, and both of those guys will be certainly large step-ups from what we'd hear a little bit later on. But, you know, King Parsons had been around for a little bit. You know, this was a guy, you could start seeing some of the cracks, you know, him coming out of his shell a little bit, and that we would absolutely see when he would become the Iceman with the braids and the dancing and world class. You know, you're seeing a little bit, but it's not all coming together for him yet. But, you know, Mike Davis, you know, one of these young guys here in Mid-Atlantic, you know, he's going to be a guy that we're going to be talking about on this show for a long, long time because he lingers around the area. But, you know, Mike Davis, you got to have a mid-card, you know, for every main eventer. And you got jobbers and the carpenters of the business, but sometimes we forget about the guys, just the solid guys inside the ring and the solid guys that are on the undercard. And Mike Davis, with hindsight, we can see how his career played out, but, you know, you can see why people looked at him as a possible player in the future.
Oh, definitely. You need guys like him, like a Tim Horner, like you said, kind of the mid guys that can put on a competitive contest and, you know, occasionally you throw him a bone, let him get a win, maybe a win on TV. But yeah, Mike Davis is definitely an asset, you know, and like you were saying with Parsons, later on in World Class, you would see his personality come out a little bit more and you could see him emerging. But, you know, these are kind of the earlier stages of Parsons, a little more subdued, a little more calm, and definitely a different look than what we were used to seeing him.
Yeah, and that goes for him inside the ring as well, too. And you kind of saw it in this match where, it opens up and he was the guy that was going to be taking a lot of the enemy fire at first from Ledoux and Brown. And early on, Parsons stumbled being thrown against the ropes and he kind of flopped back off into a right hand by Ledoux. And it just kind of showed, how early it was. And he got brutalized in the first about 2.5, 3 minutes of that match. He got thumped from everybody, especially Leroy Brown, before he was finally able to reverse a whip and get Brown into the corner and go diving for a hot tag to Davis, who came in like a house of fire. And that lasted for literally about 5 seconds before Brown cut him off. Makes the tag to Ledoux, who hit the one-arm backbreaker and then followed it up by a big leg drop, and that was that in a little over 3 minutes.
I know, Mike, that you pay attention a lot to the fashion and whatnot, and one thing that stood out to me was what was up with all the green. You had Parsons on one side wearing green, Brown on the other side wearing green. They looked like they could have been a tag team. You got the ref wearing a green shirt. I don't know. It's just something that really stood out to me, like how everybody had green on during this contest.
I didn't realize how much green was being worn there. I did notice it with Parsons, but I didn't think about it with Stu Schwartz or with Leroy Brown. I got to be honest, with Leroy Brown, I was more amazed by the dye job kind of fading out of his beard and the weird colors that he was getting there as it was going back to its natural form. But when I've been thinking green on this show, I've been thinking about Sir Oliver Humperdinck and all of the green that he is throwing around. And what a surprise. We've got an interview segment. And if there's not a good guy out there, what does that mean? It's Sir Oliver Humperdinck time. And after the match, we had a commercial, and then all those dudes came and joined Bob at the desk and had some big words there for Jimmy Valiant and, of course, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Well, the House of Humperdinck scores again.
That's exactly right. I was out here trying to help a young punk a little while ago by the name of Mike Rotundo, and it seems that he doesn't want my help. Well, that's all fine and good, but one thing you're going to have to learn, Rotundo, is nobody puts their hands on me, and that goes for you too. Now, I saw the beginning of the show where everybody got together and got Jimmy Valiant a brand new radio. Right. Well, let me tell you something, Jimmy Valiant. I'm not happy for you. I hate you as much as Joe LeDuc hates you. Take a look at this man right here. This is a guy you're going to be wrestling, Jimmy Valiant. You better be ready for him. Talk to him, Joe.
Jimmy Valiant, that's very nice to the people to buy you a nice radio. You all are very nice people. But let me say this is not Music City. By far. If you want to go to Music City, you can go to New York or you can go to California, but the Carolinas is not a Music City. And Jimmy Valiant, when you get in the ring with me, you've got something I want. And what I want is that belt, that TV title, and it doesn't make any difference how much it's going to cost to you, to your body, but I'll get it.
He's exactly right. He says exactly what's on his mind and never goes from that. Now, let me tell you, Leroy right here has been looking all over high and low for Ricky Steamboat. Listen, he's right here in the ring right now, but I don't think he'll accept the challenge.
I'm going to tell you something about people like Steamboat. It looked like I'm going to have to go back and do it like I did it back in Chicago. Back in Chicago, it's every man self for himself. You learn to survive early in Chicago or you don't make it at all. Now, back in Chicago, I used to take something like this and beat Ricky Steamboat like he was I owned him. Now, I might just have to do it like I did it in Chicago. So, Ricky Steamboat, I might just take this someplace and beat you right like I used to do in Chicago.
All right, fans, there they are right here ringside, and we're going to go to the ring now, the introduction for our next match. All right, let's see if we can get Leroy Brown and Joe LeDuc out of the studio. Okay, to the ring now, fans, and the introduction for our next match. Our opponents first. Our opponent from Tennessee at 240 pounds, here is Jim Dalton. Jim Dalton. His partner from Texas at 252 pounds, Juan Reynosa. Juan Reynosa. Across the ring now, their opponents. First from Hawaii at 232 pounds, Rick Steamboat. Rick Steamboat. His partner from New Mexico at 223 pounds, Jay Youngblood. Jay Youngblood.
And there we find out about our next match. Jim Dalton, Juan Reynosa, Ricky Steamboat, and Jay Youngblood. Jay Youngblood attacked Leroy Brown from behind last week while he was jawing with Ricky Steamboat, had the big strap on him. We heard Ricky Steamboat talk about it a little bit earlier in the broadcast, that Humperdinck would be tethered to Jay Youngblood and perhaps other people at ringside for the matches between Leroy Brown and Ricky Steamboat, but Roman... Leroy Brown's carrying around a mic stand in this. You got Joe Ledoux right there. Leroy just being Leroy Brown. Just the boisterous yelling. He even he cracked Bob Caudle there as he was jawing at Steamboat as they were exiting the studio. But, hey, it's the House of Humperdinck, and expect to hear a lot from these guys on every single show.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. When J.J. Dillon managed the Horsemen, I don't think he appeared on TV as much as Humperdinck does. Granted, he's the top manager. He's got all the heels, but even when these guys are not in the ring, somehow Humperdinck's involved. If you're a Humperdinck fan, you're definitely going to love the Mid-Atlantic area around this time.
Oh, my God, yeah. Jim Dalton, we talked about him last week, him popping us so much with that great promo that he cut with Reynosa.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's in there with Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood this time around here. And during this match, it's not long before Bob Caudle talks about Jimmy Valiant getting his new boombox and says, "A very happy and excited young man out there." Talking about Jimmy Valiant, who it's like, I guess when you're the age of Bob Caudle, you can call him a very happy and excited young man, Jimmy Valiant. But Steamboat and Youngblood back together here. Now, this is the first time that they have teamed on TV since, I believe it was the August 14th episode, and Youngblood for most of the year has been teaming with other people. He had a couple of Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Championship reigns. I believe one was with Porkchop Cash. The other one was certainly with Johnny Weaver. He's been teaming recently with Mike Rotundo, but has also spent a lot of time with Jake Roberts. But we're getting Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat back together here. And as I mentioned on an episode a few episodes ago, they are actually technically your NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions. They had defeated the Privates on August 22nd in Toronto, but as we mentioned when we spoke about that, with the World Tag Team Championships coming back into the area, the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team titles essentially just disappeared. And even in this match, there is no mention whatsoever that these two guys are the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions.
And that's a shame, too, because Steamboat and Youngblood are such a solid team. And, when you watch this match, you look at them, they look good as a team. They look like athletes. They move around like athletes. They have good teamwork. Why not mention that they're the champs? For crying out loud, it's Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. Why would you not mention that they're the Mid-Atlantic Tag Champs?
Yeah, it's crazy. And, this is another reign by Steamboat with the Mid-Atlantic Tag titles that'll just fade away. He had one with Paul Jones, which kind of faded away after they had broken up. And they make no bones about it. When that World Tag Team Championship comes back into the area, the Mid-Atlantic Tag titles just take a back seat. And, one of the things that I noticed during this match, and it's not like it takes much noticing once you hear it crack off a man's chest, but we talk a lot about the chops of Johnny Valentine or Greg Valentine or Wahoo McDaniel or Ric Flair. I tell you what, for a guy that worked with all of those guys, Ricky Steamboat, he picked up some brutal knife-edge chops as well.
Definitely. And something in this match, it's been a while since we've seen them together, but they would do things that would show that they were a team. There was one spot in there where Steamboat would pick Youngblood up by the waist so he could kick his opponents, and even the finish, Youngblood is holding Reynoso so Steamboat can come off the top rope and with the crossbody block to get the pin. And just little things like that, the tag team continuity, whatever you want to call it, it just looked fluid. They just looked good as a tag team.
Yeah, and that finish came after one of their other patented moves that they would do together, that catapult, where, Steamboat would pull the ropes and Youngblood would come flying into the ring and jump on and pin a guy. And, he got the 2 count initially, and then, held Reynoso up and Steamboat hit him with that big high flying body press, which in a studio that's that small looked even more impressive than it usually does. And that was that. And about another match that went about 6.5 minutes there. Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood back together as a team. I guess we'll see where that one goes, eh?
Yeah, I have a feeling they've got a bright future ahead of them coming up. But on a little side note, Mike, just after what happened last week and some of the previous weeks, just looking at Dalton, just knowing the promos he could cut, it's kind of a shame he didn't get a little bit bigger of a push, Like, I'm becoming more of a Jim Dalton fan, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, I really liked that promo last week and some of his other stuff, and I kind of wish they would give him a little bit bigger of a push, to tell you the truth.
Oh, God. And, I'm hoping that there's more promos on the network that we're going to have in the next upcoming weeks with him, because as I put in a tweet when I put up the promo for everybody to see from Dalton, he was in the business for 25 years at this point. He started in the late 60s, or I guess in the mid 60s, let's see here, 1958. If this is correct, it would be 1958. So he's 25 years into the business. He teamed up with Don Fargo as the Dirty Daltons, but I didn't grow up in that era. And worse than that, I didn't grow up anywhere near it to hear any of the stories passed down. I didn't in West Tennessee or throughout the Gulf or the tri-state area where he was his biggest. Unfortunately, we probably have the least amount of videotape. And unfortunately, so much of that is lost to time. So I'm praying that we get some more, in lieu of localized promos, we get some more of these from guys like Jim Dalton.
Yeah, that would be nice, because he was impressive. I'm starting to become a big Jim Dalton fan.
And from Jim Dalton's awesome in lieu of promo, we then get Keith Larson and Pork Chop Cash. Hey, Pork Chop was never a great promo. Certainly a unique look. As a member of the Bruise Brothers, was my personal high point with the Pork Chop. Keith Larson, we know what he'll do a little bit later on when he changes names to Rocky Kernoodle and he teams up with his brother Don trying to get some revenge on the Russians. But unfortunately, this was what you heard from Keith Larson here, which I am absolutely not going to play. Let everybody seek that out for himself. He never was able to get over that hump.
No, he was never excitable. No, just very flat, very blah. You kind of get the feeling like, if he doesn't care about what he's saying, why should we care? It just does not come off like there's any passion with him.
Well, and even with when John, got his neck all busted up by the Russians, when Keith Larson was trying to fight for his brothers and his family's honor, like, he may have meant every word that he said, but he just seemed like a scared little kid. And that unfortunately is the deal. And obviously he's a very, very good wrestler. He's a solid amateur wrestler. And of course he's being trained by guys like Gene Anderson at this point. So, his ring work is okay. He's just very milquetoast. The opposite of that is Paul Jones, believe it or not, in the area, because it's Paul Jones and Greg Valentine who are going to be facing off against Larson and Cash, and Paul Jones has got a lot of equity built up with that fan base in there, and as soon as he and Valentine and Humperdinck come out, Humperdinck is getting rooster crowing, a kid starts doing that, but Paul Jones is the one that seems to me, and I could be wrong here, he was the big heat magnet of the day.
And you had mentioned earlier on about the Rotundo Alexander match seeming like it went a little long. Maybe it was just me, but I thought this match could have been cut short a few minutes.
They beat the hell. Yeah, this thing went a little under 7 minutes, and it felt longer because it was so one-sided. One-sided affair where Valentine and Jones, Larson got in and Jones gave him, I don't want to say a bunch, but he got in a little bit before Valentine got tagged in and just completely bombed him, got the figure 4 on him, and that was that.
Yeah, and it went a little long. This was kind of a hard match to watch, for me personally, at least.
Well, that's why we're not going to play the whole match, but we will play the end of it, which goes nicely into the show closing promos by You guessed it, the House of Humperdinck.
Jones with a knee to the side, turns him around and stops Larson's right in his track. Football tackle here from Jones. That's a devastating move on the part of Paul Jones. A tag. Here comes Valentine. Has had him set for the bionic elbow. Valentine working on that leg. Humperdinck says more, more, more. And with a figure four, Valentine has got the figure four on him. And referee Stu Schwartz says ring the bell. Valentine finally breaks it as he had tremendous pressure out of the figure four on the knee and the leg of Keith Larson. Paul Jones, Greg Valentine, very happy, along with Sir Oliver Humperdinck. Watch right here. Valentine came with the elbow smash, went around and got the leg, came back with the elbow blow again to the leg muscle, and then went to the figure four. Applying the pressure out of the figure four, it was all over with the winners, Greg Valentine and Paul Jones.
Once again, the House of Humperdinck has come through with another outstanding victory, this time featuring the Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, Paul Jones, in combination with the future U.S. champion, Greg Valentine. You know, there's too many Indians around this area for me, and I know there's too many Indians around this area for these guys too, and namely I'm talking about Chief Wahoo McDaniels and your two stooges, Jack and Jerry Briscoe. Well, I've got the guys that can take care of Jack and Jerry, and you too, Chief Wahoo. Listen to this. You know something? Valentine and I could get out here, and we could talk for an hour if we had somebody to talk about. If Briscoes were tough, if Wahoo was tough, we'd get out here and talk up for an hour how tough they are. But they're not as tough as they think they are. Did you hear them at the beginning of this program? They were so proud of each other. Payola, you seen that? That's illegal. Buying that Boogie Woogie man a radio.
They just got together and gave him
bribing him. This man here doesn't have to pay us. It's special to sign us up. We know what this man's going to do for us. We know where he's going to take us. And we have a relationship that's tighter than you can imagine, because it's exactly what he calls it, a family. And a family is what it is. Now, do you think, for 1 minute, I know there's a lot of people out there sitting at home, they're saying, the heck with Briscoe, Wahoo, and the rest of them. Because I tell you, I read between the lines, Valentine read between the lines. They want to jump us. Four of them want to jump one of us in the parking lot. I know it. I can feel it.
You imagine accusing Paul Jones and myself, Jeff Briscoe, out there accusing us of jumping him, telling everybody. He told a pack of lies, because you understand, Paul Jones and myself are upstanding citizens. We're professional wrestlers. We meet everybody head on, right there in the ring, because we are the best. We don't need to jump anybody in the dark alley. So just show up, Wahoo McDaniels, Jack Briscoe, Jerry Briscoe, Steamboat. Let's go.
And there we hear from the House of Humperdinck. Roman, I don't know what was longer, the match or that promo there at the end, which went so long, I was forced to play the cover of the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling theme that the WWE Network has come up with there, as Greg Valentine just couldn't help himself. He was going to get all of his stuff in there, and that was that. No wheel being reinvented there, just the House of Humperdinck saying what they are going to do. Abdul the Butcher coming into the area. We will talk about that when we get to the results, but Paul Jones, he could have talked for an hour. I thought he was going to.
I'm glad he didn't. I know when he said that, I started to cringe like, oh boy, how much time's left in the show?
Oh man, well that was that, folks. This was a relatively pedestrian affair. Other than Jimmy Valiant getting his boombox back, we are just having seeds planted, and we are having things get moved along. One seed being planted is Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood back together as a team. We know, because of the benefit of hindsight, that that is being done for a reason right now, to get people back acquiesced, or what's the word I'm looking for here? Back antiquated? No, that's not it either. But you know what I'm saying. Back to what's the word?
I'll go with antiquated. That sounds all right.
Is that I don't know if that's it. Acclimated. Acclimated. That's what I was looking for here. A man of many words I am. I was terrible in Mad Libs, but getting people back acclimated to see Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood getting acclimated again as a tag team. But basically, they were just kind of moving some things forward here, and that's just the way it goes sometimes. Fortunately, we don't have those localized promos that we could have played to talk about some of the things that are going to be taking place. And, you know, Roman, when we're going to get to the results, we're going to be getting to a title change. And I guess I'll go ahead and spoil it right now for everybody because I want to kind of get your thoughts on this. By the time we do another show here, we are going to have a new Mid-Atlantic Television champion, and that is Joe LeDoux.
Big Joe LeDoux gets his run with the belt, you know, as Humperdinck. You know, he instantly gets Paul Jones a championship, and now LeDoux's going to be a champion. And so I'm sure we'll be hearing even more from Sir Oliver Humperdinck now that he's got a lot of gold in his stable.
I think that's going to be a pretty safe bet, but you know, because there wasn't a whole lot exciting on here, I was hoping I could take a gander around the world of wrestling and find something else to play, you know, with Roddy Piper now being a full-fledged babyface in Georgia. We got to hear how all of that played out. I searched on World Class, and there wasn't a whole lot there to really get into, but I went ahead and I checked out episode number 38 of the Mid-South Wrestling Review Show with the great Brian Last and Mike Mills. And guess what was taking place on this very same day in Mid-South?
Kamala, 6'9" tall. Kamala, 385 pounds. Kamala, the crudest man known to professional wrestling today. Arms and legs as large as trees. As strong as some of the largest animals known to man. Kamala, 6'9". Kamala, 385 pounds. Kamala, the Ugandan giant.
Kamala, the Ugandan giant, would be showing up in 2 weeks in Mid-South alongside General Skandar Akbar. Roman, that promo, that vignette, that debut video for Kamala, arguably the greatest in wrestling history. Mr. Perfect had a bunch. There's been a lot of legendary ones from over the years. The purple haze rising out of the water. There's been many, many, many out there. And I guess it all just kind of depends on what territory you're from and what age you are of the ones you like the most. But for me, I don't know. That Kamala one is right at the top of the list.
From the deepest, darkest jungles of Jerry Jarrett's backyard, you know, where that vignette was filmed. And what a resurrection of his career. You know, he was Sugar Bear Harris in the Memphis territory, and he was going nowhere. And then all of a sudden he comes from Uganda and he's transformed into Kamala, and, you know, the rest is history. And he had a good run as Kamala. And of course he had one of the most famous magazine covers of all time on Sports Review Wrestling when he had Hogan's head on a spear. You know, years later, I still remember that. But, yeah, what a transformation from Sugar Bear Harris to Kamala, the Ugandan giant.
One of the more, just a classic great pro wrestling character. And, boy, you want to talk about some, just bringing the ugly to Mid-South. Jim Duggan, Kamala, Killer Khan, the One Man Gang, Iron Mike Sharp, the Grappler, who, I mean, look, he was ugly. You know, Len Denton, I can't even remember what he looked like, but he was just an ugly character, the Grappler was. The Mongolian Stomper is there. Colonel Buck Robley is there. This is a very few handsome faces that are dancing around the Mid-South area. Although, I will say this, Roman, they did get some legitimate baby faces, and we mentioned their names earlier on. Tim Horner and Kelly Kiniski are actually on this TV. from the McNeil Irish Boys Club. So they are off on their learning adventures. Kiniski continues on. Horner had come over from Tennessee, had been working there, had been in Mid-Atlantic there for a while, and they are both now in Mid-South, facing off against all of those fine-looking gentlemen.
Yeah, they had a lot of underneath guys that ended up being promising. Of course, Arn Anderson was there, Shawn Michaels, and they were paying their dues. But, something, Mike, if I could talk about our episode, it's just something that I wanted to say is that there are historical moments that people always remember where they were at when they happened. There was man walking on the moon, the Berlin Wall coming down, and now Jimmy Valiant getting a boombox from his friends can be added to that list. Aren't you glad you were part of history to see music come back to Jimmy Valiant's life?
God bless. Yeah, God bless. And that's, I don't know if you have a bow to put on this episode, but that's really about
that
it.
Was it. That was the whole highlight of the show was Valiant getting a boombox.
That's about all I got to there. So all I can do now is hit this little button here and play the music, much like it does on Jimmy Valiant's boombox. I got this for you.
Let's take time for this commercial message about the Mid-Atlantic wrestling events coming up in your area.
And before we get to the results from everywhere else, we'll get to the results from Worldwide Wrestling, which was also taped on Wednesday the 15th in the WPCQ studios. Mike Rotundo and Ricky Steamboat defeated Ali Bay and Juan Reynosa. Leroy Brown defeated Pork Chop Cash. Joe Ledoux defeated King Parsons. Paul Jones and Greg Valentine defeated Ron Ritchie and Mike Davis. And Jack Briscoe and Wahoo McDaniel defeated Jim Dalton and Ben Alexander. The next night on Thursday the 16th at the Norfolk Scope, Wahoo McDaniel defeated Abdullah the Butcher by disqualification. Leroy Brown defeated Ricky Steamboat. And Jack and Jerry Briscoe defeated Paul Jones and Greg Valentine. On Friday the 17th in Richmond at the Coliseum, Gene Anderson defeated Jay Youngblood. Paul Jones and Greg Valentine defeated Jack and Jerry Briscoe. And Wahoo McDaniel defeated Abdullah the Butcher. Also on Friday in Charleston, South Carolina, at County Hall, Private Kernoodle defeated Johnny Weaver, Jimmy Valiant defeated Joe Ledoux by disqualification, and Ricky Steamboat defeated Bad Leroy Brown. On Saturday the 18th in Greensboro at the Coliseum, Ricky Steamboat defeated Leroy Brown, Greg Valentine and Paul Jones defeated the Briscoes, and Wahoo McDaniel defeated Abdullah the Butcher and Sir Oliver Humperdinck in a handicap match. Also on Saturday in Spartanburg at Memorial Auditorium, Private Kernoodle defeated Johnny Weaver, Jay Youngblood defeated Gene Anderson by reverse decision, and Jimmy Valiant defeated Joe Ledoux. On Sunday in Charlotte on the 19th at the Coliseum, Jay Youngblood defeated Gene Anderson, Ricky Steamboat defeated Leroy Brown, Joe Ledoux defeated Jimmy Valiant to win the NWA Mid-Atlantic Television Championship, and Wahoo McDaniel defeated Abdullah the Butcher in the main event. On Monday, September 20th in Greenville, South Carolina at Memorial Auditorium, Wahoo McDaniel defeated Greg Valentine, Paul Jones defeated Jack Briscoe, and Dory Funk Jr. defeated Johnny Weaver. Also on Monday in South Hill, Virginia, Pork Chop Cash and King Parsons defeated Private Nelson and Private Kernoodle, Jimmy Valiant knocked off Joe Ledoux, and Ricky Steamboat beat Leroy Brown by disqualification. On Tuesday the 21st in Columbia, South Carolina at Township Auditorium, Mike Rotundo defeated Dory Funk Jr., Jack Briscoe defeated Paul Jones, and Wahoo McDaniel defeated Greg Valentine. Also on Tuesday in Raleigh at the Civic Center on the 21st, Johnny Weaver and Jay Youngblood defeated Private Nelson and Private Kernoodle, Jimmy Valiant defeated Joe Ledoux, and Ricky Steamboat defeated Leroy Brown. And that takes us back around to Wednesday, September 22nd, Charlotte, North Carolina, back at the WPCQ studios. And here's the WWE Network preview for next week's show. September 25th, 1982. On this edition of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Wahoo McDaniel takes to the ring to partner with Jack Briscoe for a tag team match main event. Dory Funk Jr. gives Mike Davis an opportunity to earn a rich reward, plus Jay Youngblood, Jimmy Valiant, and more. As I mentioned earlier on, if you like this show and would like to connect with it more, I invite you to follow us on all of our forms of social media, especially our Twitter. Just search @MidAtlanticPod and look for the logo. And also, please support all of the shows here on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. We don't condescend, and we are dedicated to preserving and accurately archiving the history of professional wrestling. And I'm proud that this show, produced by me, can be a part of that. For Roman Gomez, I'm Mike Sempervive. Take us home, Uncle Bob.
And that'll do it for this week. See you next week. And until then, so long for now.